Good afternoon and welcome to Science Fiction Retirement Library. This is something a bit different. It's an August 2025, end of August 2025, pretty close to real time, update of the Science Fiction Retirement Library collection itself. Now there's two parts to this. One is the virtual, which is what you see before you, a very simple Power BI dashboard with a few measures that relate to the data within my collection, and then the other is the physical check-in, which is where is the library, what does it look like, which is unfortunately a long way off and some grey areas, but I'll give you a quick update on that as well. But the main thing is for me also to have a look at what I've actually acquired over time since I started the channel, but also before that, because I did go back and add obviously the books that I wanted to keep for my Science Fiction Retirement Library. Now, one thing to note straight away is you'll see that the library acquisitions per week only started on the 27th week of 2025. That's because I didn't actually think about doing that until that time. So this will grow over time, but obviously the vast majority of the books in the current database and library I didn't know when I acquired them. Now I could look at Goodreads, but Goodreads is more when I read it rather than acquired, so I'm going to build this up over time. But straight away, just some of the kind of things that are obvious and stand out are, okay, so I've got 1,242 books overall. Of those, I think 1,109 are good enough for forever for my library. Now usually that's based on condition. It could be on the specific edition that I'm looking for, but as you know, I kind of go for multi editions of the same book anyway, but so it just means I'm very happy with that, you know, nothing to worry about. In terms of need upgrade, 133. Now the need upgrade is usually again based on condition, but I could have, for example, something in the pan lozenge. I found one at my mum and dad's house, for example, which, even though I do need an upgrade, it's a pretty battered reader copy, I'd probably keep that anyway. But the reason for the need upgrade flag is if I'm out and about in a secondhand bookshop, without trying to find it amongst all of my storage, etc., is I'll know if I see a really good condition, I'll know if I've got it, and probably that will be an upgrade. Sometimes that can backfire, but it's just something to look forward to. So V001, you can see here, if you can see my mouse, this is changing over time. I'm in software development anyway. I love analytics, I love data, and this is just the first snapshot of what I wanted to do, and it can grow over time. And Power BI, Tableau, whatever you want to use as a representation tool, pretty easy to use these days. So some of the things that I'm looking at, the binding. Now I'm not an expert on this, but AFPB is A format paperback, which you'll see 925 of the 1,200 plus are A format paperback. So that's basically the core of my collection. And 1970s publication date A format paperbacks is the core of my collection. So if I click on 1970s, for example, and A format paperback, 533 of those books are A format paperback published in the 70s. And the top year is 1977, where I've got 89 books published in that year, or the editions were published in that year. And top of that is A. Van Vogt, then Asimov, Michael Moorcock, Philip K. Dick, and Heinlein. Now, I'm not sure if I've split Robert A. Heinlein and Robert Heinlein, but we can see that's something just with the modeling. So straight away, you've seen I've kind of done two drill downs to have a look within my library to see what I've actually got, because, you know, I buy a lot, I read as much as I can, but I never really know. Now I've also got this filter, which just sets me back to the beginning. I don't really need these filters here, and I can start to drill down again. So some of the things to look at. So binding was one. I could look at A format paperback and hardback, for example, which really is the core. I look at the others. Now the others are things that I don't really know the format, usually the old stuff. As I say, I'm not an expert. And if you see here, the oldest, I've got a 1954 Wilson Tucker, The City and the Sea from Nova from 1954, and it's good enough apparently. So that's a really kind of nice acquisition. I can click back out of there and then just see the ones from the other, and I can come back out. Now, if I'm looking at ages, I've got individual years here, which is quite nice, but I've also got the decade up here. So if I want to look at what's my oldest book? I click on pre-1930s, basically. Probably should be pre-1950s. Probably want to rename that because I'm not sure I've got anything in 1940. But here I've got one book, which is the one that my wife bought me on my wedding anniversary. If I click back out of there, if I look at 1950s as the next decade, I've got 24 books, but 2 need an upgrade. And the oldest one of that, so I can click on here, 1952, Carrie Rockwell, Stand by Mars. Ray Bradbury, I got 1955. Now, if I click on that, if you click on an individual book, for example, it's obviously 1 and 1, and this needs an upgrade. And you haven't seen this yet because I've got a really interesting South Coast auction purchase recently, and this was in it. Illustrated Man from 1955. I was very excited, but if you read my notes on this side, you might not be able to see behind it. It says no front or back cover. Let me scroll up a little bit. You can't see it, but no front or back cover. And I actually pulled it out to show you. So this is the no front or back cover. So it's got everything. It's got all the pages, but it's missing a few bits. But I couldn't let that go because it's so old and it's such an important book. Also an important book to me because I read it a long time ago and really liked it. And again, it was one of the trigger points for my love of science fiction, that Martian Chronicles. We all know Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, for example. And I've got a really nice other version of that. And to do that, to look at my version, so let me just reset again. I'm going to change the reset so it doesn't bring the filters in. I've also got title and author search. So if I wanted to do title search and just say, give me June or give me The Illustrated Man, that also works. Now I'm going to extend this across all columns, etc. So here you'll see everything becomes Frank Herbert as 100%. Obviously, I've got 25% of them are Gollancz, but most of my June are NEL. So anyone that watched the Richard collection can understand why. And then in terms of ages here, my oldest copy of June is 1977, but it's Children of June. So my oldest copy of June itself is 1978 from that trilogy in the slipcase box, which was lovely. And then I've got 2 versions of the Sci-Fi Masterworks. One, so if I click on here, I didn't put the hold on. How can I check if that's... So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add also the binding here, because if I click that, it should show me one of the 2. So I know I've got 2 hardback versions of that in Sci-Fi Masterworks, but it doesn't tell me. So I'll add that at some point, and that will become version 2, basically. And if I wanted to look at Illustrated Man to find the other copy, I can just put Illustrated or Illustrated Man. And there's my other copy, which is a HarperCollins. I didn't put any notes, but it's the is it the Voyager Classics one from 2002, the blue ones, which are really good. So I'll extend it, start adding notes, etc. And then author search. So I've got the top 5 authors here. I've got the top 5 publishers here, and I've also got a representation down here, top author, top pan for the range. So if I wanted to look of all my books in 1980s, who was the top author? It was Andre Norton and Panther. Now, Andre Norton, interestingly enough, I've got a video coming up with a haul based on Andre Norton, so that's probably why. One thing I want to do is I want to keep this as top 5, so I'll fix that. That could be a bug or just a change. I don't want to just... Here, it's quite interesting because I can scroll down. Okay, so I can see Robert Silverberg, and that will take me back to see all the Robert Silverberg. Reset again. And yeah, so you can start to see how you drill down and build the picture. And like any analytics, the power comes from the questions you ask it, right? Like, what do I want to know about my collection, my retirement library? And then you expand the visualizations and the model based on what you really want to find out, right? It's a kind of a two-way street. So if I wanted to do author search, as I said, I don't know if I put Heinlein as Robert A. Heinlein and Robert Heinlein or not. Okay, so I did split them. I kept them separate. So this allows me to say I've got 38 Heinlein books across the 2 ways. I could also put something like Banks, right? Because, okay, so Ian M. Banks. I didn't add the Ian Banks books to this. So I didn't add Was Factory, is it complicity. So that's an interesting one. I made the decision at the time not to put it into my data source. So that's one thing to know about this. This is the front end. This is what I use to have a search, and you can create reports, export to Excel, all the things you want to do. But I've got obviously a data source, which is my tracker. And that's just a Google Sheet, very simple Google Sheet with a few columns. I also use it to control my channel episodes and planning and progress and things like that. So yeah, in terms of types, this is an expanding list. So I added a few types just so that I can, for example, do things like, okay, what's my pan lozenge side of things? So obviously it's 100% pan. My top author is, it's not Arthur C. Clarke. So I need to, obviously I want to sort this as well because it's Bob Shaw. I've got 8 books. But this is something, it's dynamic. So I add it. The yellow is basically the Sci-Fi Masterworks yellow, pan black. Standard is everything else, and then I've got Pan Sun. They're all A format paperback. Now I've also got, for some of these series, I've got need. So if I've got 76 of the Pan Lozenge and let's say they're 80, I've also got the list of the 4 that I need, and then you can see here I've got the list of the 7 that need upgrade. What I want to do is add a link here so I can also click on need upgrade, and it very quickly gives me the 7 that I need. So yeah, top author Bob Shaw, top publisher within this range is Pan, obviously. If I look at standard, which is everything that is not part of those, Panther is my top, A. Van Vogt is still the top. And then let's say if I wanted to say in week 32 what was my top, I got a lot of Philip K. Dick and I got a lot of Science Fiction Book Club. And that's stuff you haven't seen yet, probably. So that's a little hint of what's to come. So again, remove off the standard, I'm back to my 1, 2, 4, 2, and that's basically it. So an interesting thing for me to build over time, and when I haven't got the physical up and running, at least I can dive into my collection and really see what's changing over time now that I've got this, and also what's the core of my collection, and maybe what I need to focus on in terms of growth. Eventually I want to get to the point of shelf IDs. So one of the things I want to do in terms of inventory management when I have my physical library, you can see here, I did start to do it here, by the way, as I said, this is on shelf A, shelf B, whatever. It became kind of impossible because of the space I'm in at the moment. But on the physical library, I'll have a shelf ID for a specific book, author book, group of books, etc., where I'll be able to search very quickly. But that's a long way off. So yes, it's basically, ask me questions about this if you want. I can show you the data source. Let me just see if I can bring that up. Very simple data source here. So you can see I started doing the needs. So 360 books needs, there's the 1242. I did start doing the analytics here as well. And then I've got combos for each to do quick analysis. I've also got some conditional formatting to say if it's later, for example, than 1979 and stuff like that. Here's my flags, my series names, my notes, etc. So that's this master list that I call it is the main source of data for that Power BI visualization. And it's a very simple Google sheet. I've got some refs for the combos and authors, and for example, when I build over time, I'm building a repository of publishers that I have. I also do my challenges on my channel admin here, and I've got a challenge coming up, by the way, which is related to early 80s science fiction book club books, which I've just started, and I'll give an update soon. So yeah, it's very simple stuff. In my opinion, it's very simple stuff, but the best, sorry, that's the wrong one. Hold on, let me go here. The best things are simple, right? And you start from a simple place, and then visualizations and analytics can dive deeper and deeper once you learn the data that you've got. So as I said, I probably want to add horror, for example. So if I look at Matheson, I actually picked up some really nice books here. So I Am Legend, obviously from Science Fiction Masterworks, and Shrinking Man I've had for a long time, but I picked up 3 horror books from Richard Matheson, and they're really nice. And I didn't want to part with them, and because it's like an author that went across genres, I wanted to keep them. So I'll probably add, for example, a horror flag in the same way that I've got these flags. So I didn't tell you about these flags, but these are just some more filters. So anthology for me is anything which is multi-author short stories or novellas within one book. So I've got 101 books that I define as anthology. Have I got any signed anthologies? No, I've only got false. My fantasy, let's see what number I've got of fantasy. So 49 books considered fantasy. My oldest fantasy, I have two from 1967, which is the Talbot Mundy and Thomas Bernard Swan. This says to check. I presume that's not the title, so that's probably me saying check a blank. Something with a data set, which I'll check. And then from fantasy, have I got any signed? I think I have, those that have seen the Richard collection. So I've got 4 that I've defined as fantasy and are signed. Now, this one I even know, anyone that's seen the Richard collection was signed at Forbidden Planet at a specific date. I could have missing data, but yes, I've got 4. If I remove the fantasy flag, how many signed books have I got that are not fantasy? So I've got 10, which is awesome for me. And what's the oldest and the newest? I can sort by publication year, for example. So the newest is that Jeff Noon Automated Alice that I got in that mystery box a long time ago. And I didn't realise at the time it was part of Vert. I should have known. And I loved Vert. And Pollen, I think I read. And then I've got that Weave World that came in. And the oldest one I've got is actually a Pan Lozenge. If I click that, which is clicking the specific book, it's a Pan Lozenge from 1977, Charisma, which is signed. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So if I come back here, again, I'll remove that. Non-fiction, what have I got? So 21 books. And what have I got from the 1950s? I've got these, Donald Kehoe, Desmond Leslie, and Jonathan Norton. And then short stories, none which are obviously non-fiction, but let's have a look. Short stories here. 69 books of short stories, which is, I'm calling the short stories is one author, multi short stories, or could be novellas. And I picked up quite a few recently, which is in an upcoming video. So again, that's a hint. And again, most of mine is 1970s and most of mine is 1977. So I have got, in 1977, I've got 8 books which are defined as short stories, and it looks like 25% of that is Alfred Bester. So I've got 4 books. So, okay, interesting. So that actually changed it. Okay, I need to use the control key. So, okay, I've got 2 from 1970, both good enough. Alfred Bester, Starburst and Dark Side of the Earth from 1977, which is the Pan Lozenge, basically. If I come out of that, I've got another one here, which is Alfred Bester. It's pretty small. I might want to kind of increase that, which is another copy of Starburst, but Sphere from 1973, but it needs an upgrade. So you can start to see how detailed you can get. So that's the virtual check-in. Please ask questions if you want to know anything, or if you think I should add something. You know, all your ideas are welcome. I've said about the shelf IDs, which will come over time. I'm going to add some more columns here so I don't have to play around with the filters. But that's pretty much it. In terms of the physical, so the physical, which obviously relates to this, is we were in Scotland recently, and we looked at a couple of houses, few houses, and I could have an incredible library up there. Oh, you know, for the price of being down south, my heart was racing, my dreams were flowing. But unfortunately, due to family commitments, probably that's not going to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a short-term thing, which is downstairs we've got kind of 3 rooms that we've never really touched. We've only got kind of 4 rooms, to be honest, but 3 rooms we haven't touched. And what we're going to do, and my wife's allowing this, is the diner we're going to turn into probably an office. I'm going to move out of here. This might become a reading room, just with books and a chair, which is my office is a cupboard. And then the dining room is going to hopefully become kind of a section, which is an office for my actual work. And then hopefully a whole wall of bookshelves with blackout curtains for my science fiction retirement library. So it's a bit of a way off, but I've got people coming around literally next week to have a look. We haven't got a big budget, but it's something that we're prepared to look at. So if that does happen, which hopefully it does, I'm going to take you on the journey to start looking at the shelving, the room that will house these 1,242 books, basically. So join me. Anyway, that was just a quick check-in. I will do these check-ins again now that I've got this growth over time. I think it will be really interesting. You'll see that I had 3 weeks of craziness in 2025, 62, 36. If I, what's the total there? Hold on. So I had 3 weeks where I acquired 197 books, right, which is unbelievable. And then I've had kind of a fallow period the last few weeks. But what I'll do, and it doesn't show zeros, I don't think. I don't think it shows zeros. I'll have to see. I'll have to check the data. But basically, I'll see that grow over time. I'll see the book's growth, and then I can make decisions on what I want to cull, what I want to put in the physical library, what I want to give away. For example, I'll probably have a flag maybe in terms of giveaways, maybe a challenge. Is this book involved in a challenge? I'm doing a 10-book challenge, so maybe they can be flagged as part of a specific challenge so I can see progress, etc. So the world is my oyster, our oyster. Please ask questions, let me know what you think, and I'll be back soon with an update for what's coming in September. And there's a lot of book hauls, auctions, smelly, dusty things to look through. So thanks again for everything that you do to help with this channel. Much appreciated, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.